Shadows in the Rain, a lesson in human warfare. Commander Kelm stood at the edge of a vast field churned into a muddy wasteland by incessant rain. Beneath his polished boots, dark earth squelched, a sound that made him grimace. He was a Kashak, a species known for its calm intellect, sleek blue skin, and peaceful traditions in the art of war. War to them was a domain of simulations, controlled conditions, and laser-focused strategy. Yet here he was, on a distant human world, watching something that made no sense at all. Behind him hovered Lieutenant Varric, his blue-skinned aide. Varric's antennae twitched nervously, his eyes darting among the strange sights before them. Rows of human cadets marched and crawled through thick mud under a relentless downpour. Their uniforms, once crisp and dark green, were now soaked and clotted with filth. Instructors in similar uniforms stood on raised platforms, shouting orders that contained equal parts encouragement and insult. The entire scene was a study in chaos. "Sir," Varric whispered, his voice cracking slightly, "are we certain this is a premier military academy?" Commander Kelm's translator device buzzed and hummed as it tried to parse the human language and emotional subtext around them. Kelm sighed, arms folded over his chest, attempting to maintain some semblance of dignity. "That's what the reports say. This academy, West Point, is reputed to be one of their best." "Best?" Varric repeated uncertainly. "They're dragging themselves through mud as if they were vermin. This is no training. It's madness." Kelm suppressed a shudder, his pride preventing him from showing too much discomfort. "Humans must have a reason," he said, though he doubted his own words. It looked more like punishment than preparation. A figure approached through the rain, bootsteps firm and confident. The human wore a soaked uniform, droplets running down a face set in a broad grin. He extended a hand, palms wrinkled from the rain. "Welcome to West Point," he said loudly, voice cutting through the pounding water. "I'm Major Harlow, your guide today." Kelm hesitated, took the human's hand in a careful grip. The human's brown eyes gleamed with an odd pride. "Commander Kelm of the Kashak Fleet. This is Lieutenant Varric." Major Harlow nodded, as if nothing about this scenario were strange. "Great to meet you both. We're honored to have you observe our training." Kelm glanced over the human's shoulder at the field. "Major," he began carefully, "could you explain what exactly I am looking at here? These young ones, your cadets, they seem to be suffering?" Harlow laughed, a sound that echoed across the drenched landscape. "Oh, that! Just a little exercise called Field Week. We push them through mud, rain, cold, and every unpleasant condition we can muster. Builds teamwork, resilience, and the ability to function when everything's going wrong." Varric's antennae stiffened. "You consider this normal?" Harlow shrugged. "Sure. Adversity builds character, as we say. If they can handle this, they can handle far worse in actual combat." Kelm's mind whirled. In Kashak academies, cadets learn through simulations, comfortable temperature controls, and precise holographic scenarios. Physical discomfort was minimized, considered a distraction from mental acuity. Yet here, physical hardship was a cornerstone of the curriculum. The human pointed toward a group crawling under a net stretched low over the mud. "We call that the mud pit crawl. They learn to move under enemy fire, hypothetically. They get used to discomfort until discomfort means nothing." Kelm watched a cadet slip, face planting into the mud. Instead of despair or retreat, the cadet pushed forward with what could only be described as grim determination. The commander's translator caught some shouted curses and laughter from nearby instructors. To these humans, it seemed hardship was more friend than foe. Harlow gestured for them to follow. "This is just the warm-up. Come, I'll show you the crucible." "The crucible?" Varric echoed, his voice quavering. They moved on, leaving the muddy field behind. Now they approached an obstacle course that looked like a structure of nightmares. Towering wooden walls to climb, angled ropes, barbed wire strung across trenches of filthy water, and narrow beams suspended high in the air. Harlow stopped before it, admiring it like an art collector before a masterpiece. The crucible is their final test. They go through it sleep-deprived and hungry after days of continuous exertion. If they make it through, they earn their place as future officers. Kelm felt his jaw loosen in disbelief. Sleep-deprived and hungry? Intentionally? Absolutely, Harlow said casually. We break them down here so that no enemy can do it later. The logic twisted Kelm's brain into knots. The Kashak might train their officers in strategic thinking, yes, and toughen them mentally, but depriving them of basic needs was considered barbaric. Yet here, the humans saw it as essential. The humans confronted adversity head-on, embracing it as a key ingredient in forging warriors who would not crumble under real battle stress. Varric leaned in and whispered, They treat their own soldiers as if already captured by the enemy, sir. It's madness. Kelm nodded, silently agreeing, but also struck by a growing understanding. This was how humans adapted and thrived. In a universe brimming with dangers, they refused to rely solely on comfort or intellect. They forged something else. Grit, a quality that might outlast any sophisticated technology. Harlow continued to lead them. Now, over here we have survival training, he said, pointing toward a wooded area. Cadets wandered among the trees, carrying only knives and rope. They must spend a night out here with minimal gear. Build shelters, find food, stay warm. It teaches them to adapt. Kelm swallowed. All this, lack of sleep, lack of food, exposure to elements, just to teach them adaptation? Harlow's grin returned. Exactly. The environment is the best teacher. Out in real combat zones, you might not have your equipment or your comforts. If they can survive this forest with next to nothing, they can survive in hostile alien landscapes. The Kashak commander sighed heavily. This tour was reshaping his understanding of military excellence. For the Kashak, excellence lay in perfect planning and advanced weaponry. For humans, it seemed to lie in tenacity and self-reliance. They circled back toward the heart of the academy, rain still drenching them. Harlow guided them to another area, where thunderous booms rattled Kelm's bones. Explosions peppered the horizon. Kelm ducked instinctively, covering his head with his arms. Harlow chuckled. Grenade practice. Don't worry, we're well clear. Grenade practice? Varric squeaked. You give them live explosives? Of course, Harlow replied. How else do they learn to handle them safely and effectively? If we only showed them simulations, what happens when they first see the real thing in battle? We must remove fear through familiarity. Kelm's breathing grew shallow. This was sheer audacity. Giving lethal tools to trainees and having them practice in controlled chaos. Yet, to humans, this seemed normal. Their entire approach aimed not just to impart skill, but to forge unshakable confidence. They confronted fear and danger head-on, making it mundane. They walked on, now approaching a structure that resembled a long hall. Inside, rows of pods lined the walls, each hooked to complex machinery. Ah, you'll appreciate this, Commander, Harlow said. Virtual combat training. Finally, something Kelm could understand. Virtual simulations were a Kashak specialty. But as they entered, he noticed the cadets strapping into pods that would simulate battle conditions. He expected quiet concentration, yet heard screams, shouted orders, the rattling of harnesses. Pain? Kelm repeated. In a simulation? The notion was unsettling. Simulations should be about mental acumen, not inflicted agony. Harlow nodded. We want them to experience a close proxy to real wounds and exhaustion. It's controlled, but it hurts enough to leave a memory. That memory ensures they won't panic when it happens for real. Kelm's mouth felt dry. They inflicted simulated wounds? This stepped beyond discomfort into psychological conditioning. Yet these cadets volunteered for this, or at least accepted it, and 95% of them completed it. The thought sent chills down his spine. Varric tapped notes into his device, antennae trembling. He whispered to Kelm, Sir, these humans, no wonder they have a reputation. If this is how they train, what must their actual soldiers be like? Kelm could only nod. He recalled the purpose of his visit, to understand why humans were considered formidable. Now he had his answer. Their training academy was a crucible not just of skills, but of spirit. They learned not only to survive hardship, but to dominate it. Every test was designed to push them beyond comfort, beyond what sane beings would tolerate, until hardship became familiar terrain. Harlow finished explaining the virtual battles, and led them outside one final time. The rain had lessened to a drizzle. Afternoon light struggled through clouds. The silhouettes of cadets moving in the field looked almost serene now, after everything Kelm had witnessed. The major turned to the alien commander. Commander Kelm, you've seen how we forge our officers. We don't rely solely on advanced weaponry or strategic brilliance, though we do value those. We rely on creating soldiers who can fight in hell and not flinch. Kelm looked at him steadily. He felt a grudging respect, laced with an undercurrent of fear. I see that now, he admitted softly. You forge their minds and bodies in conditions that would break others. You make them comfortable with chaos and pain. Harlow nodded. Precisely. War is chaos. Anyone can fight well in ideal conditions. We prepare them to fight when everything goes wrong, to ensure the enemy can never exploit weakness. Kelm inhaled deeply, thinking of how he would report this to the Kashak High Council. He imagined the disbelief on their faces when he described humans sloshing through mud, hurling grenades, enduring pain in simulations. The council would struggle to understand a species that considered hardship not an obstacle, but a teacher. Varric approached, his voice low. Sir, our shuttle is ready. We can depart whenever you wish. Kelm nodded. He had seen enough, far more than enough. He turned to Harlow. Major, I thank you for your time and your candor. You have given me insights I never imagined. This will shape our understanding of your species. Harlow's grin reappeared. Glad to help, Commander. I hope you found it educational. Educational was hardly the word. Kelm offered a stiff bow. I suspect our peoples understand each other better now. Even if I cannot embrace your methods, I respect the results they yield. They parted ways. As Kelm and Varric walked to the shuttle bay, the lieutenant trembled. They are dangerous, sir. Their methods unthinkable to us. I see now why they achieve victories others cannot. Kelm placed a reassuring hand on Varric's shoulder. They are indeed formidable. But remember, Lieutenant, knowing how they are made strong also gives us understanding. Perhaps we can find a way to respect and learn from them without losing ourselves. Varric sighed. I hope so, sir. I truly do. The shuttle's engines hummed to life. As they lifted off, Kelm watched West Point's training field shrink below. The drenched cadets became tiny figures, still forging themselves in mud and rain. He tried to picture these same humans in a real war, facing horrors unimaginable. He realized with a start they might not flinch. They had seen it all in training, the failure, the fear, the pain. War would offer nothing truly new to break them. In the quiet of the shuttle, Varric reviewed his notes. We must caution the council, he said softly. Our standard assumptions do not apply here. Humans are not efficient in a traditional sense. They're resilient in a way we've never accounted for. Kelm closed his eyes, recalling the cadet crawling through mud, refusing to surrender. They embrace adversity, Varric, he said. That is their strength. They become not just skilled, but unbreakable. In our well-ordered fleets, we never considered that a virtue worth developing. Varric tilted his head. Should we mimic them, sir? Kelm considered the question. I doubt we could replicate their methods. Our culture, our ethics differ. But we must respect what they are. And perhaps, in small ways, we can learn to endure more. Not to become them, but to understand them. A silence fell, each lost in thought. The shuttle soared into the planet's atmosphere, leaving behind the academy where humans danced with chaos. Kelm mused that their entire species seemed forged by a planet known for hardships. Their home, Earth, a death world as some galaxies whispered, had bred a people who found strength in surviving what others would avoid. Their military academies echoed that heritage. What would it mean for the galaxy if humans spread further, if their armies, trained in mud and fire, encountered more advanced but less resolute foes? Kelm imagined future conflicts. The Kashak believed in swift, clean wars decided by superior logic. Humans, on the other hand, might turn war into a test of wills and grit, dragging their adversaries into long, grueling engagements until the enemy's spirit cracked. In that scenario, who would prevail? The question lingered, unanswered, as the shuttle broke through the cloud layer, stars becoming visible. Kelm sighed, remembering Major Harlow's words about no enemy exploiting them if they had already faced every horror in training. He suddenly appreciated the subtlety. By embracing adversity in training, the humans disarmed adversity itself. Danger lost its sting once you had lived with it as a daily companion. Back aboard their own ship, Kelm and Varric prepared a thorough report. How to phrase these revelations without causing panic? The Council must know that humans, despite their relatively recent arrival on the galactic stage, possessed an inner arsenal unmatched by technology alone. They must know how humans temper their soldiers like steel, hammering them until they spark. Varric typed feverishly, adding notes about each exercise: the mud crawl, the crucible, survival training with a knife, grenade practice, virtual combat with simulated pain and stress scenarios. Kelm hovered behind him, dictating corrections, emphasizing the key insight. Humans do not see training as a comfortable prelude to war, but as war itself, waged on their own souls to ensure victory when it counts. Eventually, Varric paused, antennae drooping. Sir, this will be difficult for the Council to digest. Kelm nodded. Truth often is. But they must know. Perhaps it will prevent a misunderstanding or a future conflict. Maybe they will approach humans as equals who have earned respect the hard way. Varric gave a faint smile. If anything, I've learned that human soldiers have probably been through more torment in training than many species see in actual combat. Yes, Kelm said, voice quiet with awe. And that is precisely why they are to be treated with caution and respect. In the silence that followed, Kelm realized the rain-swept images would stay with him forever. He would see those cadets' determined faces each time he thought of the human military. He would remember the mud, the screams, the laughter of instructors standing in thunderstorms. He would recall grenades and virtual pain, and a philosophy so foreign it felt like a mirror universe. But perhaps this was the essence of understanding another species, stepping into their world and seeing how they shaped their young into protectors. The humans sculpted soldiers from adversity, as an artist sculpts marble with hammer and chisel. Rough, brutal strokes for a magnificent final form. Kelm sighed. This was the galaxy they lived in. Diverse and unsettling. To survive and thrive, understanding was key. Now he understood the humans better, and that knowledge might one day save lives, Kashak and human alike. "Lieutenant," he said, voice soft but resolute, "finalize the report. We have learned more than we bargained for, but now we must share it. Let the Council think deeply. Let them see that beyond technology and strategy, there is a quality in humans that cannot be easily measured." Varric nodded. "Yes, sir. I will emphasize their resilience, their capacity to adapt to hardship, their psychological warfare on themselves during training." "Exactly," Kelm said. "And I will include a personal note that we must never underestimate those who embrace adversity rather than flee it." The shuttle engines hummed softly as they headed back to their capital ship in orbit. Stars framed the planet's curve outside the viewport. Down below, on Earth's surface, training continued under darkening skies. Cadets would wake tomorrow to new trials, new hardships, and they would conquer them as they always did. Commander Kelm closed his eyes, letting out a long breath. He now knew what humans did for fun in the name of training, though he doubted fun was the right word. They laughed at adversity. They relished challenge. And because of that, they would always stand ready, no matter how dire the circumstances. Enduring images played behind his eyelids. A cadet crawling through mud, refusing to give up, even as rain lashed his face. That image distilled the essence of humanity's approach. If you can endure that, what can't you endure? Kelm was certain this knowledge would echo through the Kashak halls, prompting debate and perhaps changes in their own doctrines. At the very least, the Kashak would never approach humans with the same assumptions again. Outside, the cosmos looked unchanged, but for Kelm, the galaxy had shifted. He understood humanity, at least a fraction better, and that fraction might be all that saved the Kashak from future folly. Humans were not logical in the Kashak sense, not efficient in the traditional way. They were something else, relentless, tested by their own hand, and armed with a will forged in trials that would break many species long before the shooting ever started. As the shuttle rendezvoused with their capital ship and docking procedures began, Kelm felt tired but strangely grateful. He had not just witnessed their training, he had glimpsed their soul. He had seen what turned their soldiers into living weapons of resolve. Now he could only hope that one day, should their paths cross as allies or even adversaries, the Kashak would treat them with the respect and caution they deserved. In the quiet that followed, as the shuttle bay pressurized and the doors opened to his crew's anxious faces, Kelm stepped out into familiar surroundings. Yet he knew he would never look at warfare or soldiering the same way again. The humans had shown him a new definition of strength, one beyond technology and reason, born from mud, rain, and will. And that, he thought, might be the most valuable lesson of all.